Welcome back. If you haven't seen our previous recordings, I would encourage you to go back to give you some context. So, of course, we discussed the start of trust, the idea of unconditional giving, the idea of consistency. We discussed the ideas how HaKadosh Baruch Hu, before Yetzias Mitzrayim, before parenting the nation of Klal Yisrael, gave us those conditions. But the truth is, trust is so foundational to our relationship with our children. It's so foundational to the relationship between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we must dig a little deeper. And the Chovis Havavos gave us all the tools for that by giving us a complete list of causes that would bring us to trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to give our full and eternal trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we can use that list, number one, to see how HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us those causes in Mitzrayim. And number two, to see what parts of that list we can imitate. So let's see the list that the Chovis Havavos gives us. Number one, the Chovis Havavos tells us ahava that causes that person that you want to put your trust in, or in our conversation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ahava that brings with it unconditional giving, which of course we discussed. And not just unconditional giving that's restricted to what's necessary, but unconditional giving that is unrestricted. So, for example, we saw in Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not just make sure that the children in the field survived, but He provided them with milk and honey, with the best possible sustenance for them. The second cause to bring trust, the Chovis Havavos says, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu thinks about everything that we need, not just the things that we can think of and we ask Him for it, but rather everything. As HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Paroi and the people who are out there to get Klal Yisrael were trying to deteriorate the numbers of Klal Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was making sure they were born 6 at a time. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu was making sure, as Chazal tell us later on, that there were no mamzerim, there was no znus in Klal Yisrael. The third one, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so strong that there's no one that can hold Him back from doing what He wants. Of course, again, something we saw in Mitzrayim. Paroi wanted to kill Klal Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu protected them. The fourth one, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what's eternally and really good for a person. Not what might look good, but what is eternally good. Indeed, Mitzrayim itself, at the time, if you had asked any Yid, I'm assuming they would say Mitzrayim is terrible. But when we look back and we understand that that was the birth of Klal Yisrael, of course you would say Mitzrayim was a great thing. The fifth thing, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was there from creation till the end. In other words, the entirety of someone's life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. And that, of course, is a great cause of trust. I can trust that He'll always be there. The sixth thing, that nobody else can cause harm or benefit to me, if not HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself. Of course, again, what we saw in Mitzrayim, clearly only HaKadosh Baruch Hu could do anything to us. And the seventh, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would be mative, would give good and gifts to whether the person is worthy or not. Again, what we see in Mitzrayim, they were Ivdei Avodah Zarah, yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in order to parent Klal Yisrael, gave anyway. And of course, of these conditions, we see, first of all, that these are the conditions that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put into us even before Yetzias Mitzrayim. Because as parents, to start the foundation of trust, we must try to at least imitate as much of this list as we can. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could do it all. We must try. Let's try and go through the list and see how many of these we as parents, we as the two partners in the three-partner relationship can give to our children to create that trust. The first one, to of course give unrestricted, not just the basic needs of our children, but to show them that we'll give them whatever we can think of that is good for them. We must do that in order to create trust. The second one, that we think about everything the child needs, not just the thing that they can think of. That, of course, we can imitate. The third one, that there's no one in the world that can hold us back, that we cannot imitate. And we'll have to see how we imitate that cause of trust later. The fourth cause, that we know what's really good. In some sense, we can imitate that. We might know what's good for our child, even when our child doesn't know. But of course, we don't know what's eternally good. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. The fifth, that we're there from when the child is born until they die. In Yetz Hashem, all of our children should outlive us. So we cannot fulfill that completely. but somewhat we can, as we are there from when they're born. The 6, that nobody else can do harm or benefit to our child, we cannot imitate that. And again, as I said before, we'll have to understand how we imitate that as far as a cause of trust. And the final one that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to those who are deserving and to those who are not deserving, we must imitate that, and we must incorporate that into our building of trust into our children. As we saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu before Yetzias Mitzrayim. Again, the birth of a nation happened by Yetzias Mitzrayim. Before Yetzias Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu already made sure to have these 7 causes. In order for us to start building a relationship of trust, we must try and imitate as much of these 7 causes as possible. Now, we went through some of the things that we can do as parents to cause them to trust us. But what about the things that we clearly said that we cannot imitate HaKadosh Baruch Hu? We cannot show them that we're the only ones who can cause them benefit or harm. We cannot show them that we're so strong and whatever we want to do for their good, we can, and nobody else can stand in our way. How do we incorporate those causes of trust? And the answer is so simple, because what we start seeing here is the hishtalshelus, how all these ideas of the relationship of trust start to change lanes and mix and match between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whenever we have a situation where we cannot possibly explain to our child, you have to trust us, and we can do it no matter what, but what we can do is incorporate the idea that there is a partner here in this relationship, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and him you can trust for that. In other words, of the 7 causes that cause the greatest eternal trust that the Chovos HaLevavos gave us, we have some that we can completely imitate. And the rest, what we can do is share with our child that we trust HaKadosh Baruch Hu for that. And therefore, you can trust HaKadosh Baruch Hu for that. And we see how this relationship starts to connect all the dots between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and us and our children. And the truth of the matter is that this goes even deeper. HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself did not start his relationship of trust with Klal Yisrael without incorporating their trust in their parents. The Ksav Sofer tells us that the conversation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Moshe, the fact that Moshe said, Hein le'aminu li, was not an idea that Moshe questions Klal Yisrael's emunah in a creator in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu said there is a different issue. Moshe Rabbeinu said Klal Yisrael trust their parents, and their parents told them that they were going to be in Mitzrayim for 400 years. How can I now come and tell them that they can leave after 210? You see, the Ksav Sofer is telling us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself had to somehow make some type of an idea where he can match into the trust that Klal Yisrael had with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was the conversation with Moshe Rabbeinu. Because again, we see this idea that the trust and the relationship that we build with our children is on target to create a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and our child's relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore they will continually go back and forth in circles and go from understanding that we have to create a trust from our children to us, from our children to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and from us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This series is created by TorahWire.org, sponsored by the DonorsFund.org. For all your charitable giving, for an efficient and free experience, open your account today at the DonorsFund.org. Have a wonderful day.